welcome back to Ocean Currents. Bill Spohn here with Andrew Bock. Andrew, how you doing, man?
Hey, Bill. Good to see you again. It's been a while.
Yeah. Hey, speaking of see me, take a look at the top of my head. My Ocean bit me.
Oh no! Is that from the the hood?
Yeah, I had to change my 12 volt out. I was getting some really bad signals from my battery monitor, and so original battery. Finally changed it, and I'm one of a different club. There's an association now. There's a club. I'm one that's gotten bitten by my Ocean. How about you?
No, I've not. Well, I mean, aside from the fact that I haven't driven it in several weeks now, it is still in the shop. We finally did figure out what the issue with it is. It's the PKC module has gone bad. For those that are in the same situation as I am, it's a fairly involved service. The guys at Pat's in San Francisco doing a great job keeping me informed of what the problem has been. But it's I haven't driven it in quite some time. It's probably been over a month at this point that it's been there. I've been traveling a lot, so it hasn't been that big of a deal. But basically, since I recorded that show in New Orleans, I think it's probably been with them. I have not been bitten in any other way than that. It's a pretty big bite, but it's not physical. It's more emotional. This is why I think Matt put out the video. Mountain Ranger put out the video not that long ago. Or get yourself some pool noodles, cut them up, and put them up there.
I did use Mountain Ranger's video. I had it propped up on the table next to me, right outside the vehicle, the hood. Yeah. Went through it several times beforehand, during, paused it in the middle. Excellent, Matthew. Can't thank you enough. That's gold. Your content is gold.
Yeah. I just a bummer about your head.
Yeah. And then I did want to say, when you said you haven't driven it in a while, I think we do have to say the date we're recording this, because things are changing so freaking fast in this world. March 27th, this is 5:10 p.m. Eastern. I mean, it could be different.
Opening day, MLB.
Yeah,
so that's a good way of, I'm rocking my Phillies gear.
Cool.
It's to your point, things are changing, especially in our world. Specifically as it relates to some of the topics we're going to talk about today.
Well, one big change is the communication strategy for Town Hall is now changing to Zoom webinars, and you all should have received an email that gives you some brief instructions on making sure the email that's associated with your FOA member account is an email that's active in Zoom, and that could be a free Zoom account. And then you'll get a follow-up email. In fact, I got mine today from Christian Fleming that had the directions like, okay, you the next town hall, March 30th, the invite will be coming out for a Zoom webinar. And that is so that town halls can be truly for members only.
Perfect.
And have a better Q&A system and improve features just in general.
It's better at this stage of the organization's formality to move into that type of environment. And I think, it'll be helpful in logging, keeping all these things and, recordings of this stuff, making things available to folks afterwards. I think it'll probably just be a better overall system. I use Zoom daily.
Yeah.
People.
So in our pre-discussion here, you had some thoughts you wanted to share. I'll let you loose. Yeah.
So I've been driving, a lot of electric cars in the month since I've had to hand the Fisker over to the shop. During that time, I have taken about a 3,000 mile, just under 3,000 mile road trip to Montana and Idaho and back, and then another road trip down to Southern California, down to the desert. Back up here. In both instances, I was renting EVs because I wanted to try some of the other competitors out in the market and see how I like them, just in case. You never know. As much as we're all very hopeful and proactive about the work that we're doing respectively to keep these Fiskers on the road. The reality is, we don't know, and so it's good to just get a feel for what the rest of the market is like. So I on that just under 3,000 mile trip, I had a Mustang Mach-E, and on the shorter trip, a Kia EV6. Both of them are great cars. I think that certainly after the trip in the Mustang, I could not wait to get back into the Fisker, which was kind of interesting. I think from just a drive and the feel, the seats, there's just things that and this isn't even really just getting used to. This is just like, no, it's a better, we have a better experience. It's a better product in that regard. And so that's been kind of eye-opening for me. It's been helpful as we're trying to navigate what do we do with, the chase and everything that we're going to talk about here in a few minutes. But what else is out there? Good cars. Right now, I'm actually driving around a BMW i4, 2025 BMW i4. These are all, good cars. They feel very sort of generic to me, and that's something that I'm not a huge fan of. If I wanted to drive a Honda Civic, I'd drive a Honda Civic, and that's sort of the way I feel about some of these cars. But what my biggest takeaway was less about me and more about what does the market look like for people overall. And what excited me about it, despite the fact that I've spent these trips longing to get back into my Ocean, despite all the problems, is that it's a healthy environment overall for people. And my hope is that it gets folks into these cars, more more frequently and more, make this transition a little bit faster. I will say the Kia EV6 on the road trip was a phenomenal charging vehicle. The charging curve on that car is pretty unreal. I think the max I hit was about 237. And so I was refilling that car from 4 or 5% up to 80+% in about 20 minutes.
Wow.
Yeah. So, there's positives and negatives. But overall, just couldn't help but keep coming back to, it doesn't do this, or, even with this BMW, everything's in the screen. So just changing the temperature of the air conditioning or heating or anything, everything's behind the screen. And that is not ideal.
Yeah.
Yeah. But hopefully I get it back soon.
So one of the things that members should have received on this past Sunday, the 23rd, was a financial update. And I'm just going to give just a sort of select information from it. Brian formerly was the treasurer. Clint is now it was voted in as treasurer through the elections last month. And the information being shared is for FOA members, so I'm not going to share too much detail. That's actually it's proprietary and confidential information to FOA members, but there are financial reports being given that includes expense breakdowns and things in general and the overview. And then there's also an income sheet as well as a balance sheet. So fair amount of transparency there. There's also, means to contact through the FOA member portal to reach out to the officers to ask any further questions you have. So I think that's about as much as I want to say about the balance sheet. It's expenses, good shape. Lots of things going on. The goal, as always, is to improve quality of life, ensure better service options, and parts availability for Ocean members, for all FOA members.
Yeah. It's important, I think, for us as this continues to grow, especially as we have new owners coming in to this. Yep. I think one of the things that we're going to see with more of these Chase settlements coming to pass is just new owners, new people that are coming into the Fisker family late, and it'll be, I think, beneficial for them to be able to have that level of sort of transparency and visibility into what exactly it is that the organization is doing.
Oh, one important note is March 31st is the end of the first quarter. And for people that opted for 3-month renewals of membership, instead of going for the annual this year, they do need to renew before the end of the month. I do believe I read something about there's a small grace period, but I wouldn't push it. If you do fall out of membership, there is a reinitiation cost. So something to be watchful for anyone who is a member and has gone into the quarterly mode.
And that's March 31st. That'll be Monday. This will be released tomorrow, Friday. Right. Depending on when you listen to it, you have, a couple of days or maybe only a day, so to renew. And if you listen to this after the 31st and haven't renewed or are new, then you can just head back over to the FOA site and sort of.
Or use the email info@fiskeroa.com. That's a good way. That is monitored. Andrew and I are in contact with the leadership team through messaging system, and I do see that there are people that go in rotation to monitor the emails, and they've got a lot of support documents to make sure they give consistent answers, and there's a lot of information being shared. So, tremendous volunteer effort being applied for all our sakes.
Absolutely. Yeah. So should we talk about the big topic for today's show, which is specifically related to the settlement offers that many of us have been getting either from Chase directly or through, if you joined, of which I was one of the people who joined the Hagens Berman process, so to speak. So I've been looking at the message boards in the last couple of days. I think a lot of us are in the same boat. If we have reached out in the past week or so, I think there's been a little bit of a radio silence sort of modus operandi in place at the moment. We actually did. I reached out to Hagens Berman and to see if anyone would be available to come on the show with us. That's actually part of what delayed some of the recording of this, was trying to get either someone from Hagens Berman or even someone from FOA to come on just to give their perspective as well. Carl from Hagens responded to me. He is, happy to come on at some point. They said they were busy just with these settlement conversations and couldn't do it right away, but that they would be willing to do it. So we'll have them on hopefully as soon as the next episode. We'll see. But I think my
one quick note there. A representative from Hagens Berman, which is the firm managing the arbitration for people that held loans with Fisker Finance, which is coming through Chase. They did appear in the latest town hall before the March 30th. So any Owners Association members can go and view that town hall. You could zip ahead to see the I believe it was towards the end of the presentation that the representative from Hagens Berman was there and was able to answer questions, do a presentation. So next best thing is that recorded presentation until we get someone on.
Yeah, for sure. And you can probably get a good amount of the information. Again, that was a couple weeks ago at this stage. So, as we said at the start of this, things are changing quite rapidly. So always good to get that information and then just sort of try and keep up with as much of the day to day as you can. But having received my letter, looking at the offer, for me, I'm an Ocean One owner, as we've established, and it does appear that there is some sort of calculation or something to the degree of actuarial science that is above my head that is impacting the offers that are coming to the Ocean One owners. There's no logical explanation for it. The only thing I could come up with when discussing it with my wife was maybe they just said, all right, if it's a 2023 model year, we're going to X this much off versus a 2024. But even that, I don't think explains away all of this. So, me personally, looking at the math of everything, it did not make sense for me to take the offer the way that my deal was structured with Chase. I'm sure there are a lot of people in my situation, and my best advice is, I'm not a financial person, just to be very clear. This is not financial advice. This is no way, shape, or form anything that I am telling you to do is gospel. But for me, it was just a simple math thing. And quite frankly, looking at the fine print of the Rivian offer, I did not see anything. And if there's something I missed, I'm happy to correct it later. But I did not see anything that said it about banking the money for a car later. It seems like what they're trying to do is get rid of the existing stock load of R1Ss that are already made. So I did not see anything about like, hey, if you want to apply this to an R2 coming out next year, great. Which is where I think a lot of people might be. An R1S, if you've never been in one or driven one, is a substantially bigger car than the Ocean, and probably doesn't make sense for everybody. So, at least for me, the thought process was short, and the decision making was pretty easy when just looking at what the outstanding balance on my loan still is against the car, still financed with Chase / Fisker Finance, what the offer was, and then sort of looking at it and saying, so I'm still going to owe you money, and you're going to put me into a new lease where I'm going to continue to owe you money for X number of years. This doesn't seem like a great deal for me as the consumer. I've often seen in business that, taking that first offer is not usually the best road.
And since this is a public podcast, we may have just thrown a whole pile of information on people that aren't up to speed. You might have a casual listener here. So I'm going to try to recap, but you're intimately involved, but let me give the so-called 30,000 foot overview.
Sure.
So Fisker teamed up with Chase Bank to offer a loan product called Fisker Finance. When Fisker went bankrupt, there's a law on the books in the United States that's called a holder rule, which means Chase is just as responsible as Fisker was for sort of the delivery of a whole vehicle to these people, the people that have a loan. So that's why we're talking about Chase now and not Fisker, because Chase was kind of like standing behind the curtain. They're part of it too. How am I doing?
Great.
Okay. Next up was, I'm not sure who initiated, it might have been Fisker Owners Association, found a law firm that would be willing to take those owners who still had loans with Chase and help them arbitrate a fair settlement. And that firm is called Hagens Berman. That firm has been working hard. I believe there are 1,400 or so owners that are in that lot that are working through Hagens Berman. For the people that bought outright, like myself, nothing's happening. No, we're just where we are. If you use another kind of credit union or bank, you're not part of it. This only refers to the Chase, which was sitting behind Fisker Finance. So there's been a lot of discussions, and I think about 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago, people started getting letters, and we started seeing them on social media. I saw a lot on Facebook from Chase saying, "Hey, we're going to make you a deal," and the deal was, "We'll make you an offer for your vehicle." And let's say the offer was 40,000, just for round numbers, so we can do the math here, keep in people's heads. If you owed 30 on your loan and they offered you 40, you'd have 10 excess. That 10 excess could then be applied to the purchase of a Rivian with a loan through Chase. Those were the conditions. However, if your loan was 50 and the offer was 40, you still owe money to Chase. And I do believe you would have to return the vehicle.
That's correct.
You would return the vehicle,
return the vehicle, and you still owe the money. That is correct.
Right. Okay.
Yes.
So this is like the simple understanding I've gathered so far. And it's a tough decision for people, because we talked about in pre-show here, like it might be a financial decision. Some people just like bare bones math will just do and say, "Hey, not for me." Other people may say, even though they're getting something from it, they may say, "I got to take this offer. Just I need to be relieved from this situation."
Yeah. To be clear, I mean, if you look at the market, right, it's above market value for the vehicles in whatever shape they're in. Right. I think one of the other things that was interesting to me, and I did not see it in the paperwork, at least in my paperwork, but I had read something about Chase charging a per mile usage fee that I believe was $8 a mile, if I read that correctly. Under that logic and under that math, I would owe them over $250,000 for use of this car based on how much mileage I put on it. So that to me is sort of part of why the entire thing doesn't really make a lot of sense, the way that they've sort of structured it, or at least in the initial offer. I think it is a combination of financial and emotional, and there are any number of reasons why someone might choose to do this. And I think both of us, I happen to live in an area where there's multiple service centers within a reasonable drive of me. So for me, it's not as risky. But if you're in an area where maybe the nearest person is 6 or 7 or 8 hours away, or you've got to fly someone in, I mean, if you can get an offer for 37,000 in the open market, the car is only worth 20 some.
Yeah, but it all goes through that construct of the loan.
That's exactly right.
Yeah, so it's not just cash. It's not a check.
That's right.
It's relief from a loan.
That's right. I think if you're looking at it as anything other than, and this is the only thing that again, not financial advice, but if you're looking at it as anything other, if you just want to do a financial, that's the simplest way. Go into your Chase account. How much do you owe? What's the offer? Does this make sense? Maybe it does. And if that's a good enough reason for you, great. And we wish people who make that decision well. And again, I think there are, a number of inputs. And as I just said, I've been driving a lot of the other EVs on the market. I just haven't found anything else that, to me, matches the experience.
In fact, the other day, somebody asked me, one of my relatives asked me to visit with them over the weekend. And it's like, well, what's it like? And I'm like, it's like what I imagined driving a car would be like when I was a kid.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's just fun for me. And I'm one without any problems. So I'm not bragging here, but there are some of us out there that are just experiencing the value.
Yeah, absolutely. And, I have seen comments about this. If you really love the car, and you are able to find your way out of this situation in some sort of positive manner, there are more available on the secondary market right now. You can, Fisker Newport, I think, has 50 or 60 of them sitting on their lot, all priced under $30,000. So it's not the end of the road for you. necessarily if you decide to go that route, because you can always sort of come back in a different path.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's, I think for those that it was a good recap, Bill. Thank you. I did jump in pretty quickly with sort of the nitty gritty of it. And I think that was probably more, aligned to the FOA community that is actively involved in this, or following it on the message boards. But it's a very unique situation for sure.
Yeah, right now I believe the recommendation from Hagens Berman, from what I can gather, is do not accept the offer. And I mean, the recommendation, that doesn't mean, mandate, but the recommendation not to accept the offer.
It says it in it. Yep, it says it. I would imagine in the cover, most people's cover letters, where it's like, look, we don't understand what the calculation was that they used to come up with the value that they're offering for this. We don't believe that this is, a viable offer. But whatever you decide is your choice.
But I think they're required to pass it along to make sure you're aware. Yeah.
That's part of the deal, right? Is that every offer has to be presented to the client, whether or not they choose to accept it or not. So, we were going to have to see it. And again, I think it's going to be a case by case basis for folks.
Yeah. And sort of shifting topics, because we do have an international audience for the vehicle. From one of the recent newsletters, Tidal Wave, which is the European Union parts distribution company, is now live. It's officially launched. There's things like PKC modules, like what Andrew's experiencing.
Let's talk about that.
Keep fobs and NFC cards are all available. And water pumps and cabin air filters are not there yet, but they're available for pre-order. I did pre-order some cabin air filters because I'm actually getting what I think is, because I live in an area where there's snow, that I'm getting like a salt smell inside the car sometimes, and I think it's been ingested into the filter and it's kind of coated.
Pre-ordering cabin filters, I don't think is going to hurt anybody. And it's probably not a bad thing to have. But yeah, having the parts available internationally, the same way that we've had here with Tsunami, I think is a phenomenal next step. Hopefully we'll go through the PKC replacement.
And their website, its public website, is Tidal, TIDAL-wave, WAVE.eu. So tidal-wave.eu is the website. I'm looking at it right now.
I'll put that in the description also when I post this. Cool. So you can find that there.
Another note here I've seen in one of the recent newsletters to make sure people are aware of is that there's some meetups that are being sponsored for key fob pairing. Some of them may have already taken place, but I would say go to the FOA member site and you can find out about things like some of the areas that have been touched were Western New England, Connecticut, Mass, Cincinnati, Columbus, San Diego, Central Florida, SeaTac, and then more locations are coming up. And then for Europe and Canada, the meetups are being planned and finalized. I think they're looking for sort of like a sponsor, someone to help coordinate things. You can volunteer to assist with that. There's actually country coordinators that you can get access to through the FOA member. So trying to keep things streamlined and moving.
Great. Something else that I wanted to mention, because it's been active as part of the Rivian trade-in situation. I believe that part of this deal is you actually have to take delivery by the end of March, which
I did read that too. Yeah,
which is Monday. Same date as the as the end of the quarter, and is why the the offer or the option to apply it towards an upcoming R2 doesn't exist. I actually also think this is the same offer that they're extending to other ICE vehicles and other people. There's a lot of trade-in stuff right now. There's a ton of, especially with what's going on with people's reactions in the Tesla world. Yep. I've actually put 2 different people in my life who called me saying they wanted out of their Teslas into different vehicles, one of which ended up with a Polestar 3 and loves it. So there's some crazy trade-in offers that are out there just generally, and it looks like this was sort of just reapplied to us as part of this process.
So one of the things that we were talking about before too was the Ocean Link Pro software, the app that is in development and scheduled for release in April is what the latest I've been reading. And that would be for Fisker Owner Association members. You'd need to be a member to get access to that app. At least my understanding is the full features of the app. There may be some light features. Don't take my word for it right here, but the app is going to be available for both Android and iOS.
Yeah, and I think for a lot of us, there are what I'm really excited about. Two of my biggest missing features in the vehicle at this particular moment, if they are as indicated in that Facebook post from last week or a week and a half ago, if they are being addressed, are the two biggest concerns that I've had, which is the ability to precondition the vehicle and get it ready on certain days. And then the pet mode, which for many of us, the doggy windows and the dog friendly and dog forward approach to the vehicle was a big selling point. And I am one of those suckers that if you put a dog in the ad, I'm good. I've driven Subarus my whole life, dogs in them, regularly. So for me, this has been one of the biggest missing features, and something that I was really hoping was going to be addressed in that next, when you saw the original roadmap of the software, right. You're going, oh, there it is. There's the pet mode and, ACC and a bunch of other stuff. To see things like that being able to, at this stage, this early in the process of what the organization has been able to accomplish, to be able to see this type of sort of material change, I think is very exciting. So wishing the team working on Ocean Link Pro the best as they continue to finalize testing and get this out into our hands and really just good to have a functioning app again, I think.
And there's also I would say it's more than hints. There's also the conversation of using a product. I believe it's called Open Pilot to actually provide some automation of driving that is possible to.
Oh, interesting.
To sort of hack into your own. It's a device, about $1,000 device. You have to be comfortable with getting into the CAN bus, the communication system in the vehicle.
I am not.
To pick up sensors on that. So that's something that's more than a.
Seems like something for a professional to install.
Right. Yeah, and there's a lot of things which depending upon your skill level, your DIY nature, you may want to may want to have a professional accessing and doing these things. One thing I did want to mention that has moved in my mind from rumor mode into, hey, what's going on, is I'm finding driving in hyper mode gets me better energy usage.
I've been reading this a bunch, and it's something that I absolutely am dying to test when I get the car back because I haven't done it. But basically, this has all been sort of percolating over the last month or so since I haven't had the car. And a lot of people sort of post, I think the 2.2 update, realizing they're getting sub 3 numbers, which is really what you're targeting, right? That 0.26 to 0.28 is your target. So if you're getting 0.32 is I think my overall in the 32 or 33,000 miles I've driven for the car is about 0.32. So if you can start to see sub 0.3 hyper, great.
Pretty awesome.
Yeah, that's and again, I think one of the things that has been very interesting for me driving these varieties of cars over the last month is to sort of pay attention to the gasometers and the ways that these cars manage that component of the process. And I'll tell you, I've been driving BMW electric cars the longest since 2017. I've had now two i3s. And this i4 that I've been driving now for a couple of days, they do a phenomenal job of recalibrating in real time what your efficiency is, and then what your range left is going to be. And if we can get to that level of sort of real time updating of what your consumption is in that moment, and then what the range, that to me is like that's a wonderful place for us to be aiming towards.
Yeah.
But even just seeing lower numbers and
it's kind of funny that reflecting back on internal combustion vehicles, we have a 2015 Subaru Outback. So fellow Subaru owner here. Mm-hmm. We took it on a longer trip because we weren't sure about this mileage thing. It's still cold up here. We're in Pittsburgh. And I filled it up at one point and it reported 580 miles on a tank of gas. It's like, I know I'm not going to get that. It's sort of like, you got to rethink this.
I think that's been true. Yeah. I think the real world gas mileage versus actual gas mileage, and real world usage of these cars versus actual usage, are two different sides of the same coin. I mean, I don't think I had a 2005 Subaru Baja Turbo that I finally sold, a unicorn car for a lot of people. I don't think that thing even approximated what the stated EPA mileage was. Yeah. I was so far under it almost every single tank that when I actually got into a car that had decent gas mileage, I was like, oh, so this is what it's like to not to stop every 200 and some miles for a fill up. So, I think that the computers that are making these calculations are doing their best. But this is why, at least for me, I've always found in the 10 years or so of driving EVs, the best thing to do is just know what the car can do, sort of know the capabilities of it, and pay attention to the battery percentage, and then what your sort of driving efficiency is, not what this thing is telling you you're going to have left. Especially with the Fisker, which, needs some tweaking on the gasometer side. But I'm excited to try out the hyper mode once I get this thing back, hopefully next week.
Cool.
Yeah.
This might be old news. It might have been resolved by now, but I'm working off of an old Owners Association email. But about the cloud, there's a number of things going on with cloud related activity. I'm not going to get too deep into detail here. But there's some back and forth going on that the Owners Association is negotiating on behalf of members for. And some of it's really, pretty serious stuff like T-Mobile activations, the ability to successfully perform a NHTSA, National Highway Traffic Safety Administration recall. There's a lot of things going on. It's a real serious matter. Again, I don't think we should dig into the details here, but go to the Owners Association, go to the forums, look at the newsletters, ask questions, to get fed with information. And I also say that sometimes, like I read some social media posts, some of them are just very spot on, very succinct. Some of them ramble. Some of them introduce wild concepts, just like you'd expect from social media. There's a person who's created their own sort of newsletter or chronicle, which is mostly on point, kind of humorous, a little funny to read. But so there's a lot going on, and I think a lot of people are trying to help. And I really hope there are people aren't trying to tear down. There's really no need for that for the situation this mixed situation that we're all facing now.
Yeah, for sure. And one, while we're on sort of more serious, ending on more serious,
right?
Which is the best way to do it. Just like in the news business, right? You end right there with the bad stuff. But one of the things that I've thought about in the last 24 hours or so, because obviously we wouldn't be mentioned in this given our size and whatever, but the tariffs that were just implemented, the 25% tariff on cars coming into the United States, I imagine parts and things like that. That's something that I am also just starting to sort of wrap my head around. And does that impact us? And what does that mean for specifically some of the larger parts that we might need that still come from glass and things like that are coming from overseas. So that's just something that obviously I'm not expecting anyone to have an answer for, given the fact that this has been hours that we're into this news. But this is going to have a large scale impact in the automotive space writ large. So I find it challenging to believe that we won't have some sort of impact on our side as well when it comes to parts, but we'll see.
Yeah.
At least they're not importing any more cars here.
Well, you did mention near the beginning, near the top, this is opening day for the U.S. Major League Baseball.
That's right.
I read here 28 out of 30 teams in action on today's opening day. So go Phillies, go Parks.
Yes. Yeah, that's right. Oh my God, I forgot about our cross state parade. Yes,
I know.
Yes. So that'll be a fun thing to track throughout the season. But
cool.
Yes.
Well, thanks everyone for tuning into this episode. I hope you got something out of it, and we'll be back again with more information for the Fisker Owner Association.
Absolutely. Thanks, Bill.
Thanks,
See you
Aaron.
guys soon.
Bye.